Welcome back. I'm so excited to talk about emotional branding today. Just wrapped up my workout. I'm gonna go get ready and I thought I would bring you along. I think this is a really great example of inviting your audience into your world, which is exactly what we're gonna talk about today, because branding is my specialty. And one thing I want you to remember as we dive into this complete one-on-one training on emotional branding is that your brand is the heart of your business. It is the feeling that you emote within your ideal customer. And we're gonna dive into why that's important, how you can use emotional branding, and some of my top tips in just a minute. Hey, welcome back. So I figured we would just get ready together and talk about emotional branding. So if we've never met before, my name's Michelle Knight. I'm founder and CEO of Brandmerry, and I'm a brand strategist for entrepreneurs. So it's safe to say that this topic, emotional branding, fits right in my wheelhouse. And over the years, I've really developed an expertise in emotional branding and brand storytelling. And one of the reasons that I love it so freaking much is that it builds a deep connection with your ideal customer. Something we're going to talk about and give you some tangible steps for in this video as well. But what it ultimately does is it amplifies, it plays to the needs, the desires, and the aspirations of your ideal customer, which of course makes it so incredibly powerful. Now, I kind of stumbled into emotional branding, to be honest. Within the first year of my business, I was building my business back in 2016, obviously knew I needed a brand, didn't really know what that meant. And I started, focusing on my brand, my colors, my offer, all the logistics and the aesthetics. Completely bypassed emotional branding and brand storytelling. Then I didn't sign any clients. Fancy that. And I realized something was missing. So I went down the rabbit hole, did a ton of research, and realized that what was missing was me, was a connection. And in order to create a connection with my ideal customer, I needed to understand who the heck I was first. So I dove into it, I started signing clients, I saw a crazy increase in my leads and my sales. I hit 6 figures in a year and I was pretty much freaking sold. So I've been talking about emotional branding for a few years now. I have a couple videos on this channel, which will of course link below if you want to dive into those. But the idea here is that this is a complete one-on-one training on emotional branding, so you can get started today. So if you've done any research on branding, you know that branding, as I mentioned in the beginning, is the heart of your business, and it's ultimately the experience that you are creating. But how does this play a role in purchase decisions? Let's talk about some fun stats that convinced me the moment I read them. We know, based on research, that 90% of purchase decisions are made subconsciously. In fact, Harvard University released a study years ago that talked about the impact of emotion on purchase decisions. And when we think about that, we really know that it's not the logistics, it's not the modules or the setup of your offer, it's more about the feeling that your offer emotes and the connection that someone has to your brand. Can they see themselves achieving whatever it is you are promising? I know we don't like to talk about it, but the reality is that your ideal consumers have a lot of choices. I mean, you feel it, right? When you're online and you're getting all of these different ads, you're getting content, you're constantly getting shown suggested posts, right? It's a lot, and our consumers are going through the exact same thing. So what is going to differentiate you from somebody else in your industry that has a super similar offer? Well, of course, it's got to be your story, your emotional branding, the connection that they feel. And we have seen this time and time again with Brandmerry, where people will submit to work with me one-on-one, say that they were looking at a bunch of different brands, but ultimately felt pulled into my story and connected to my brand and made the decision to move forward. It wasn't a blog post specifically that I wrote, it wasn't a specific YouTube video or a viral reel, it was the overall connection that they felt. Not to mention, consumers have very short attention spans today. We're seeing the need for short content with TikToks and reels, short form video. So not only do we have shorter attention spans as consumers, but we're needing to capture attention so quickly. Think 8 seconds on your website, almost 2 seconds if you're scrolling through Reels or TikTok. And so the more you can harness the power of making someone feel something really, really fast, the more likely that you are to retain that ideal customer. And speaking of retention, which we're going to talk about in some of my tips, Emotional branding also helps with overall customer retention, so keeping people buying from your brand for a really long time. Okay, so where can you start when it comes to emotional branding? What do you need to have in place in order to make this work for you and your brand? The first thing I recommend my clients do, and this is not emotional branding specific, this is just like brand foundation as a whole, is to identify their story. So what is your story? What is your mission? What are your values? Why are you creating your business in the first place? And what impact do you want to make in the world? By doing this in the very beginning, you'll start to really connect with the outcome that you want to deliver for your ideal customer. You'll start to naturally think about the experience that you want to create for them. So it's a great starting place when you're trying to develop your emotional brand foundation. Not to mention, brand storytelling, which we're going to talk about in just a second, is a great way to amplify the emotions that you choose for your brand as a whole. The second thing you want to do is know thy customer. So knowing your audience is absolutely key when it comes to building your brand, and especially with brand storytelling. I often say that even though the stories might be yours, they might be experiences that you've had in your life, results that your customers have had based on your product, your service, or your offer. At the end of the day, the story that you're sharing isn't for you. It's for your ideal customer. We're running businesses, so we want to bring in the right people. We obviously want people to invest, and so it can't just be about me, 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 me. Now, of course, you want to establish who you are as the center of your brand so you can build that connection. But when you're telling these stories, when you're thinking about the emotions that you're going to tie to your brand, you need to know your ideal customer. I created an entire video on market research, which I will link in the description below. If you've never done market research, I share some of my top tips with you there. So be sure to dive into that video. But when you're thinking about, your market research and really creating a client profile for your ideal customer, think less about the demographics and more about the psychographics. What we really want to know goes back to the very beginning of this video, where I talked about the needs, the desires, and the aspirations of your ideal customer. Once you have this information, you can move on to the third element that you want to establish, and that is going to be the emotions. I want you to actually identify 5 emotions that you want your brand to amplify, that you want to showcase through your visuals, through your copy, through your messaging, through your live videos, through your colors, through your fonts. And yes, knowing your brand emotions and then choosing your colors and your fonts is a fantastic strategy. It helps simplify the process so much. Just Google color psychology and you'll see what I mean. I want you to identify 5 emotions based on the market research that you've done. Think about how you want your audience to feel when they come in contact with your brand. Now, one thing that is really important when it comes to emotional branding is to focus more on the desire and the aspirations and less on the pain. You've probably heard in, messaging and copywriting and really great marketing that we always want to highlight what your audience is going through, the pain or the struggle, and where they ultimately want to be, the pleasure or the desire. But we want people to feel really excited when they land on your website. So focus less on the pain when it comes to emotional branding and more on the desire and the aspiration, whatever your audience is working towards, so they can feel that connection. A really great way to do this if you are feeling stuck is to go to Google and type in emotional keywords, and you will get a plethora of resources that tell you some of the top emotional and feeling words that you can use to spark inspiration. So for instance, in my brand, one of the top things that I really wanted my audience to feel was warmth, to feel like they could trust me. Trust was a huge one. Adventure, inspiration. I even went as far as saying that I wanted my audience to feel like they were sitting next to a fire in my home, drinking coffee and just talking about business and talking about life. I wanted that aspect to carry through in all of my branding, and I've stuck with those emotional keywords now 6 years into having my business. Okay, I'm gonna finish getting ready and then we are gonna talk about my top tips so you can get started today. Let us wrap this up and talk about how you take these 3 steps, understanding your story, knowing your audience, and choosing your 5 emotional words, and actually put that into the branding and the marketing of your business. So one of the first things that you can do is you can incorporate these emotional brand words into the visuals and the aesthetics of your business. Now, I already touched on this before, but if you don't already have your brand colors and your brand fonts, or if you're looking to revamp those, then start with your emotional brand words and discover the colors and the fonts that will amplify those at a higher level. So for instance, I was shooting for warmth. I even went as far as creating a scene in my mind about a fall day by the fire. And so I started looking up color psychology and warmth and started to pull in these deep, rich orange colors. I know from fall, thinking of trees and different things like that. So, when you're wanting to amplify these emotional words, you don't necessarily even have to say them, but you can showcase them through the visuals and the aesthetics of your brand. We process visuals 60,000 times faster than we do words. So when we're talking about a short attention span or needing to capture attention very quickly, visuals are a fantastic way to do that. And visuals can also play a role in your brand photography, the types of photos that you choose, lifestyle photos for Instagram, social media, different platforms like that. So it's not just about your colors and your fonts. Also think about the photos and the elements that you incorporate into your branding. The second way you can amplify these emotions is through brand storytelling. I just love brand storytelling. I have so many resources here on the YouTube channel, so be sure to check that out. I even have a full brand storytelling guide over at brandmerry.com, which we will of course link below. When we're talking about this first phase, I want you to think about your core brand stories. When I say core brand stories, I'm talking about your brand story, how your business was formed. Think about your mission and why you have that mission for your brand. Think about your brand values and why your brand believes in those values and holds those values true. So these core brand stories are things that you would find on your website, on your About Me page, maybe in an email funnel that you create where you share your brand story. They're the types of stories that you're not changing very often, but you want to make sure that every new person that comes into your world understands the story behind your brand. And when you're writing these stories, when you're sharing your core stories, think about incorporating those emotional words. Think about painting a picture for your audience that amplifies those words, thinking about their aspirations and their desires and tying that in to build that connection. Now, if you are sitting there thinking, well, I don't have a connection with my ideal customer, don't worry, you definitely do. And we're going to talk about that in the next option. One of my favorite things to teach here at Brandmerry are micro stories. Now, these are the type of stories that you find in your marketing overall. Your core stories, I like to say, those are part of the branding process. They're really a foundation for your brand moving forward. Like I said, you're not changing your brand story around all of the time. It's pretty much there. It's why you created your business, why you have your brand, and that doesn't really change. But your micro stories are those small bits of storytelling that you can incorporate into your marketing. Think stories that you would post on social media, share behind the scenes on Insta stories, or maybe a live video that you would incorporate a sentence or two into your blog post or share via email. These types of micro stories are great ways to form connections with your audience, even if you don't have the same lived experiences. So again, thinking about your audience's desires, what are they really working towards? Can you somehow connect that to the journey that you have gone through and things that you have wanted to work towards in your own life? What about the struggles that your ideal customer is going through? Obviously, all of us experience fear in some capacity. While you might not be experiencing the same type of fear, you can definitely share your personal experiences of going through a moment of fear and what you did, and that can connect to your ideal customer. When it comes to storytelling, it's not about having the exact same experience. It's about having gone through something similar. So one of the stories that I share with my brand is the birth of my son. Not every single one of my audience members and my customers has given birth to a child, but they understand going through a transformational experience, something that was really unexpected, maybe something that they had thought they had prepared for and were completely blindsided. And that's the part of the story that I amplify, because that's the piece that builds connection. And these micro stories are so important. Not only can they build that connection with your audience and amplify your emotional brand words, but they also create more memorable content. We know that content that incorporates storytelling is 22 times more likely to be remembered. And so it's a fantastic marketing strategy to use to magnetize your ideal customer and keep them engaged. Like I mentioned, I have a ton of resources on brand storytelling and ideal customer, which we will link below. So definitely check those out below so you can dive further into this topic. Now, the last thing I'm going to leave you with today, I know that was a lot of information. Come back, rewatch this video, dive into it, learn more about micro stories. It's here for you when you need it. But one thing I want to share with you is that emotionally connected customers are 52% more valuable to brands. That means that once you have built a connection with someone, the likelihood of them continuously coming and turning to you for your products and your services, referring their friends, and becoming the voice of your brand is incredibly high. When you can build this connection in the beginning, you can take care of your customers via a customer experience. You can show up for them. You can be authentic. You can be relatable. They will stick around. This is one of the very best strategies that I have used in my business, and obviously it just kind of happened. I fell in love with emotional branding, I fell in love with brand storytelling, and I started incorporating that into the marketing of my brand. We started to see as a result that many of my clients continuously work with me for years to come, move up to different programs, and are the best advocates for my brand as a whole. And I want that for you as well. So I hope that this video all about emotional branding was helpful in getting you started. Remember, it really comes down to understanding your brand story, knowing your audience, and of course, identifying those 5 words and then tying that into your marketing via your visuals, via your core brand stories and your copy, and of course, your micro stories that you will share via your content creation. I'll be back with another video very, very soon. In the meantime, be sure to check out those additional resources in the caption below. Sign up to watch my free class all about branding at brandmerry.com/class, and I will see you soon.